Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So the Indiana Fever have finally waived their 3 players. They've officially made their cuts, and now the roster is down to 12 players, which, if we're being completely honest, feels like the exact 12 they had already decided on about a month ago. That's the frustrating part about this whole situation. You look around the league and most teams actually use preseason to evaluate talent. They used camp to figure out who deserved roster spots. Players came in competing, fighting, battling for positions. But with the Fever, it honestly felt like those decisions were already made before camp even started. It felt like the organization had already locked in their roster sometime in the middle of April, and everybody else was basically just there to fill out practice reps. Now, were the cuts surprising? No, absolutely not. Megan McConnell got waived. Expected. Jessica Timmons got waived. Expected. Kiana Traylor got waived. Expected. None of those moves shocked anybody paying attention. The issue is not that they got waived. The issue is that these were basically the only camp players the Fever brought in, and none of them realistically had a chance to make the team from the beginning. That's the problem. The Fever never truly brought in competition for roster spots. They didn't bring in players who could seriously challenge the veterans. They didn't bring in players who forced hard decisions. It almost felt like they intentionally avoided creating difficult roster battles. And look, I'm not trying to disrespect anybody personally, but none of those 3 players were realistically ready for major WNBA minutes right now. Megan McConnell is probably the closest to being WNBA ready, and even then, she still needs development. She competes hard, she's tough defensively, and she understands how to play, but she's still not quite there yet at this level. But the bigger conversation for me is still Damiris Dantas, because if you're keeping Dantas, then you need to understand what role she actually fills. You can't cut Dantas unless you bring in another stretch forward, because at least she can provide some spacing. At least she can shoot the ball a little bit. At least she gives you the illusion of size in certain lineups. But again, Chloe Bibby is significantly better than Dantas right now, in my opinion, and Chloe Bibby basically got moved for nothing. That's the crazy part. The Fever could have easily tried to bring somebody like that in, but instead, they stayed committed to Dantas. Now, let's talk about the developmental spots, because this is where things become really frustrating. If one of these waived camp players ends up taking a developmental spot, then honestly, the Fever are not serious about maximizing talent. They're just not. There are so many better options available around the league right now. Off the top of my head, Maddie Westbeld, Natasha Mack, Jazz Shelley, Ashton Prechtel, Layla Lacan, Taylor Theory. Those are players with legitimate upside or specific skills that could help a roster. And honestly, the Fever should already be looking hard at claiming Ashton Prechtel off waivers. They should absolutely be monitoring Madison Westbeld too. One of those players should already be in serious conversations. The Fever also should have been more aggressive months ago. They should have been targeting players internationally and trying to secure talent before everybody else started paying attention. They should have been looking at Emma Chukwuma earlier. They should have explored somebody like Pauline Astier earlier too, especially considering she could end up earning real minutes elsewhere. And then there's Liatu King. Liatu King fits exactly what this roster actually needs. She can guard multiple spots, she can rebound, she plays with energy, she can play the 3 or the 4, she brings toughness, she gives effort every possession. That's the kind of player you should be targeting for developmental spots. Same thing with Madison Scott. Madison Scott is a bigger wing. She brings defensive versatility, she gives you more physical tools than some of the players currently being discussed, but instead, people are saying bring back Jessica Timmons on a developmental deal. Based on what, exactly? Again, this isn't personal toward Jessica Timmons.
But she's not close to being ready right now. She over-dribbles constantly. It feels like it takes forever for her to create separation. Yes, she hits some shots in preseason, but hitting a few jumpers does not suddenly mean somebody projects as a long-term WNBA contributor. There's a major difference between having a good game and actually looking like a future roster player. And honestly, Kiana Traylor looked overwhelmed at times too. That's why I don't understand rewarding camp attendance with developmental contracts if there are clearly better options available around the league.
Jalen Sherrod is better than all three of those players right now, and she got waived too. I'd absolutely consider somebody like Raya Marshall for a developmental spot because at least she gives you size, at least she gives you rebounding potential, and if KK Arnold had been available in last year's draft range where the rumors existed, people know the Fever reportedly had interest there too, then you look at veterans. Shatori Walker-Kimbrough is better than Jessica Timmons right now, but at the same time, neither one is really solving the bigger issues with this roster construction. And honestly, I still think they need another trade somewhere, because I really don't love the idea of opening the season with Maisha Hines-Allen playing heavy minutes at the 4. But realistically, that's probably what's going to happen. Maisha Hines-Allen is probably going to start the season at power forward, whether fans like it or not. And then you get to the bigger issue. Who actually gets the developmental spots? The fact that this is even the debate tells you everything about the expectations around this organization right now. This is supposed to be a team trying to contend. This is supposed to be a team building around Caitlin Clark and trying to maximize a championship window. But some of these conversations feel like they're happening for a rebuilding lottery team instead. Realistically, the Fever should be aggressively trying to poach talent. Liatu King, Mariam Koulibaly, players like that. Players who can rebound, defend, bring energy, and actually fill roster weaknesses. And if the team struggles on the glass through the first few games, then maybe you revisit the roster later. Maybe then you move on from somebody like Shatori Walker-Kimbrough and bring up a younger player like Justine Pissot if there's a clear pathway. But that's the issue people keep bringing up. According to reporting from Chloe Peterson, the Fever reportedly view developmental spots strictly as developmental spots, not as real pathways to the active roster. And if that's true, then honestly, what's the incentive? You're basically just a practice player making limited money without a realistic opportunity to earn a full contract unless multiple injuries happen. And even then, it sounds like the Fever would rather sign hardship veterans instead of promoting developmental players internally. That's what makes fans frustrated, because it feels like this organization constantly prefers veteran names over upside. They prefer familiarity over development. They prefer safe options over taking chances on younger talent. And look, sometimes veterans work out. Odyssey Sims helped them, Aerial Powers brought experience, Ari McDonald gave them depth, but the Fever cannot assume they're always going to luck into situations where talented veterans suddenly become available late. That's not sustainable roster building. Those opportunities are going to become harder to find. Those players are going to age. The market changes every year. And honestly, Odyssey Sims might legitimately start for the Dallas Wings this season if we're being completely honest. That's how valuable experienced guards still are in this league. So, overall, I just think this whole situation raises bigger questions about how the Indiana Fever are handling roster construction right now, because it feels like decisions were already made weeks ago. It feels like preseason competition never truly mattered, and it feels like there were better developmental options available than the ones they brought into camp. But anyway, guys, that's just my opinion on the situation. Tell me what you think down below in the comments. Do you agree with the Fever's roster decisions? Who do you think should get the developmental spots? And do you think the Fever still need another move before the season starts? Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.